Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? I think you just said it will increase. This bill increases the deficit.
No, I want to use all the CBO scoring, and you can't take one without the other. I don't agree with the CBO.
One is the law that we are scoring, the bill that is in front of us. We don't have a tariff bill in front of us to score.
Well, Senator, interesting to see you aligned with Elon Musk, but if I add...
You're no more shocked than I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to America First, coming to you with another critical breakdown of what's happening in Washington. And folks, what I'm about to show you is going to make your blood boil. Before we dive into this absolutely disgraceful display from the swamp creatures in the Senate, I need you to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell, because YouTube is doing everything they can to suppress channels like ours that tell you the truth. And if you want to support real American journalism and keep this channel going strong, head over to patreon.com/America First, where you can support us for as low as $5 a month. Now, what we're looking at today is a Senate hearing where the liberal establishment is absolutely losing their minds over President Trump's America First trade policies. And let me tell you something right off the bat. This is exactly why we voted for Donald Trump in the first place. For decades, career politicians in both parties have sold out American workers, American manufacturers, and American families to globalist trade deals that shipped our jobs overseas and made China rich while hollowing out the American heartland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to ask about the Republican big, beautiful bill, which will knock about 16 million people off their health care coverage and cut programs that keep groceries cheaper for millions of families in order to try to pay for about $4 trillion in tax giveaways that are mostly going to be sucked up by millionaires, billionaires, and wealthy corporations. So, Mr. Besson, Secretary Besson, I'd like to start with a very simple question. Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
They're varying scoring on that, Senator Warren.
You're the Secretary of the Treasury, so I'm asking you, what is your view? Will this bill increase or decrease the deficit?
It is my view that over the 10-year window, it will decrease.
You know, do you have anybody who agrees with you on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask my question.
Okay.
Every credible independent expert agrees that Trump and the Republicans' big, beautiful bill would add trillions of dollars to the national debt and would not even come close to paying for itself. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the Penn-Wharton budget model, and the Yale Budget Lab all agree on this, and they're looking at 10-year windows, thank you. So do the Conservative Tax Foundation and Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, conservative groups. Even Elon Musk and the Wall Street Journal are criticizing the bill for ballooning the national debt. The only people who are saying publicly that it's not going to add to the national debt are you, Donald Trump, the Republicans in Congress. Do you have an independent group that has put forward numbers that disagrees with all of these conservative groups and disagrees with the Wall Street Journal on this?
Well, Senator, interesting to see you aligned with Elon Musk, but if I add...
You're no more shocked than I am.
If we want to take the full congressional budget scoring, they predict, and I don't agree with their methodology, they predict a $2.4 trillion deficit. But
okay, so the answer to the question is yes.
No, but may I finish? They include that, but they've also scored $2.8 trillion in tariff income. So even in Washington, D.C. math,
okay, so,
in Washington, D.C. math, that is a $400 billion surplus.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. This bill, you admit, will increase the deficit. by $2.4 trillion, but you think there will be another bill and another set of agreements that somehow materialize, haven't materialized so far, don't have any statutory authority, but that will make up the difference. So the answer to the original question, will this bill increase or decrease the deficit? I think you just said it will increase. This bill increases the deficit.
I want to use all the CBO scoring, and you can't take one without the other. I don't agree with the CBO.
One is the law that we are scoring, the bill that is in front of us. We don't have a tariff bill in front of us to score. Mr. Secretary, let me go on to the second question. You have said that government spending is, quote, out of control. You have also called government spending, quote, unsustainable. In fact, in the name of fiscal responsibility, you're working with the Republicans on this big, beautiful bill to pass the biggest cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act in American history. So, Mr. Secretary, help me understand here. Why is the national debt so very important that you're trying to kick 16 million people off their health insurance, but increasing the national debt doesn't seem to matter if you're cutting taxes for billionaires and billionaire corporations?
Well, first of all, a huge portion of this goes to family-owned businesses that are pass-through entities that are below that level, Senator, and I am sure you share my goals of Main Street prosperity.
You know, I'm glad to do tax cuts for people of modest means. The question I'm asking is, why does the deficit not matter to you? We're talking about knocking 16 million people off their health care, but it matters not. It does matter to you if we're knocking people off their health care, but not.
Well, first of all, that figure is overstated by 5.1 million. That is amount not attributable to provisions in this bill.
So you think it's okay just to knock 10 million people off their health care?
First of all, let's set that straight. Work requirements account for 8 million of CBO's claim number. Again, we're creating an economy that promotes and rewards.
It's clear, Secretary Bessent, that you don't want to answer the question.
No, Senator, I am answering it.
No, you're not.
And what I want is for Medicaid to be used for mothers and children as it was meant, not for 1.4 million illegal aliens, not for able-bodied people.
Medicaid is not used for people who are not documented. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say here, the part that troubles me the most is that the Secretary is deeply worried about the deficit and is willing to knock 16 million, or as he says, merely 11 million people off their health care. Matters so much, but it doesn't matter so much if you're cutting taxes for billionaires. Then it's okay to run up a big deficit. I think that's wrong.
We do have some differences of opinion. However, we also have a time crunch. I'm going to ask the remaining.
Let's break down what we just witnessed, because this is a perfect example of how the Washington establishment operates. You've got these senators, these career politicians who have been in Washington for decades, suddenly pretending they care about American jobs when they've spent their entire careers voting for trade deals that destroyed American manufacturing. Where were these concerns when NAFTA was gutting our industrial base? Where were these concerns when we gave China most favored nation trading status and watched them steal our intellectual property while building their economy on the backs of American consumers? The senator in this hearing is claiming that President Trump's tariffs are going to drive the economy off a cliff. Really? Let's talk facts here. During President Trump's first term, we had the strongest economy in American history before the China virus hit. We had record low unemployment across every demographic group. Black unemployment, Hispanic unemployment, Asian unemployment, women's unemployment, all at historic lows. We had rising wages for the first time in decades. We had companies bringing manufacturing jobs back to America. And yes, we had tariffs on China during that entire period. But here's what the establishment doesn't want you to understand about tariffs. Tariffs are not just about trade, they're about sovereignty. They're about America having the leverage to negotiate fair deals instead of being taken advantage of by every country on the planet. For too long, America has been the world's piggy bank. We've allowed countries like China to dump cheap goods in our markets while imposing massive tariffs on American products trying to enter their markets. That's not free trade, that's foolish trade, and President Trump is the first president in decades with the courage to fight back. Now let's address this fear-mongering about job losses. The same economists and Wall Street analysts who are predicting doom and gloom from Trump's tariffs are the exact same people who told us that Trump's policies in his first term would cause a recession. They were wrong then, and they're wrong now. These are the same experts who supported every terrible trade deal that shipped millions of American manufacturing jobs to China and Mexico. These are the same people who told us we needed to accept the decline of American manufacturing as inevitable. But here's what they're not telling you. Every single time America has used tariffs strategically, it has strengthened our economy and our industrial base. The economic policies that built America into an industrial powerhouse in the late 1800s and early 1900s included strategic use of tariffs to protect American industries while they developed. Even Abraham Lincoln understood this principle when he said that the abandonment of the protective policy by the American government will produce want and ruin among our people. The ambassador in this hearing, Ambassador Greer, is absolutely right when he points out that we've lost 5 million manufacturing jobs over the years. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because of deliberate policy choices made by both Republican and Democrat establishments who prioritize the profits of multinational corporations over the well-being of American workers. These jobs didn't just disappear into thin air, they were shipped overseas to countries with slave labor wages and no environmental protections. And let's talk about China specifically, because that's really what this is all about. China has been waging economic warfare against the United States for decades. They steal our intellectual property. They force American companies to transfer technology as a condition of doing business in China. They manipulate their currency to make their exports artificially cheap. They use slave labor in their factories. They dump products below cost to destroy American competitors. They've built their entire economic miracle on cheating, stealing, and taking advantage of America's openness and naivety. The career politicians in Washington have known about all of this for years, and they've done nothing because too many of them have been bought and paid for by the very corporations that profit from this arrangement. But President Trump disrupted that corrupt system. He stood up to China. He imposed tariffs that brought billions of dollars into the American treasury while forcing China to start playing by the rules. Now they're trying to scare you by talking about inflation and higher prices. But here's the reality check they don't want you to hear. The inflation we experienced over the past few years wasn't caused by tariffs on China. It was caused by the massive money printing and spending sprees of the Biden administration combined with their war on American energy production. When you shut down pipelines, cancel drilling permits, and force Americans to buy energy from hostile foreign nations, that drives up the cost of everything because energy is an input cost for every single product and service in the economy. Meanwhile, countries like China have been laughing at us while we outsource our critical supply chains to them. We saw what happened during the China virus pandemic when we couldn't even produce basic medical supplies in America because we had become dependent on Chinese manufacturing. That's not just an economic issue, that's a national security issue. And any senator who cares more about the profits of importers than about American energy independence and manufacturing capability is not representing the interests of the American people. The senator in this hearing keeps asking hypothetical questions about what would happen if hundreds of thousands or millions of people lose jobs because of tariffs. But he's asking the wrong question. The right question is, what happens if we continue to allow China and other countries to hollow out American manufacturing? What happens if we continue to send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas every year instead of keeping that money circulating in American communities? What happens if we continue to make America dependent on hostile foreign nations for critical goods and materials? We already know the answer to those questions because we've been living with the consequences for decades. We've seen entire regions of the country devastated by plant closures and job losses. We've seen communities destroyed by the opioid crisis that followed economic devastation. We've seen young Americans unable to find good-paying jobs that don't require college degrees because we shipped all the manufacturing jobs overseas. But here's what President Trump understands that the establishment doesn't want to admit. Trade is not just about economics, it's about power. When you control manufacturing, you control economic power. When you control economic power, you control political power. China understood this from the beginning. They used our own naive belief in free trade to build themselves into an economic superpower while weakening America's industrial base. The ambassador is exactly right when he says that negotiations are ongoing with countries to achieve reciprocity and reduce trade deficits. That's how you use tariffs effectively. You don't just impose them permanently and walk away. You use them as leverage to negotiate better deals for American workers and American companies. That's exactly what President Trump did in his first term with the USMCA trade agreement that replaced NAFTA, and it's exactly what he's doing now. But the senators in this hearing don't want successful negotiations. They want to maintain the status quo that has enriched their donors at the expense of American workers. They're more concerned about the profits of importers and multinational corporations than they are about the struggles of working families in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin who have watched their communities hollowed out by bad trade deals. And let's address this ridiculous claim that President Trump is implementing tariffs with no rhyme or reason. That's complete nonsense. Every single tariff action has been targeted at countries and industries that have been taking advantage of America for years. The tariffs on Chinese goods are designed to force China to stop stealing our intellectual property and to start buying American products. The tariffs on other countries are designed to level the playing field for American workers and American companies. The real problem is that the Washington establishment has become so addicted to the cheap labor and cheap goods that come from these unfair trade relationships that they can't imagine an America that actually stands up for itself. They've become so dependent on the campaign contributions from multinational corporations that profit from these arrangements that they've forgotten their oath to represent American citizens. This is why we need to support President Trump's America First agenda now more than ever. The establishment in both parties is going to fight him every step of the way because he threatens their corrupt system. They're going to use their allies in the media to spread fear and misinformation about tariffs because they know that informed Americans support fair trade over free trade. The senator mentions that they want to introduce legislation to take away the president's authority to impose tariffs. Think about what that really means. They want to tie the hands of any president who tries to stand up for American workers. They want to make sure that China and other countries can continue to take advantage of America without any consequences. They want to preserve a system where American families pay the price for the profits of global corporations. But here's the bottom line that every American needs to understand. We cannot have a strong, independent, prosperous America without a strong manufacturing base. We cannot maintain our national security if we're dependent on hostile foreign nations for critical goods and materials. We cannot preserve good-paying jobs for working families if we continue to ship those jobs overseas to countries with slave labor wages. President Trump understands these fundamental truths, and that's why the establishment hates him so much. He's not just threatening their profits, he's threatening their entire worldview that says America should accept decline and dependence as inevitable. He's proving that America can be great again if we're willing to fight for our own interests instead of prioritizing the interests of every other country in the world. So when you hear senators and economists and media pundits attacking President Trump's trade policies, remember who they really represent. They represent the same globalist establishment that sold out American workers for decades. They represent the same system that made China rich while American communities suffered. They represent the same corrupt network that puts corporate profits ahead of American sovereignty. We, the people, elected President Trump to drain the swamp and put America first, and that's exactly what he's doing. The fear and panic you're seeing from the establishment is proof that his policies are working. They're proof that America is finally standing up for itself after decades of being taken advantage of. Patriots, this is our moment. This is our chance to build an economy that works for American families instead of foreign corporations. This is our chance to restore American manufacturing and American energy independence. This is our chance to prove that the American people are still capable of governing themselves instead of being governed by unelected globalist bureaucrats. But we need to stay informed, stay engaged, and stay united. The establishment is going to throw everything they have at President Trump and his America First agenda. They're going to use every tool at their disposal to try to stop him from succeeding. That's why channels like this one are so important, and that's why I need your support. If you found this analysis helpful, please hit that like button and share this video with every patriot you know. Subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. And if you really want to make a difference, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/AmericaFirst for as low as $5 a month. Your support helps us continue to bring you the truth that the mainstream media won't tell you. The fight for America's economic independence is just beginning, and we're going to need all hands on deck to win this battle. Together, we can restore American greatness and build an economy that puts American workers first. God bless you, God bless President Trump, and God bless the United States of America. I'll see you in the next video.